What is the biggest secret you've ever kept from your family? Mom had a handmade heirloom blanket from her great-grandmother. When I was a kid, my action figures decided to torture my sister's Barbies for information on the location of the secret base. When the Barbie general still wouldn't talk after having her arm melted to a stump on the spinny bit on top of the lawnmower engine, she was forced to watch as her co-conspirators melted in a Tupperware vat of gasoline. When the interrogation started getting out of hand, I threw water on the gasoline to put out the fire, splashing it on the side of the house and setting the house on fire. I panicked, ran inside, grabbed the first heirloom blanket I could find and smothered the fire, melting one side of the blanket. My parents' relatively uninspired interrogation techniques were unable to solve the mystery of the missing heirloom. Sid, how's life been after Toy Story? I had a miscarriage on my 17th birthday. I had found out I was pregnant 3 days after my HS boyfriend, and I had broken up when my sister caught him fucking my best friend. I didn't tell anyone I was pregnant, except him. I hadn't figured out what I was going to do yet, or how to tell them. Turned out to not matter, because 2 weeks later, again, on my birthday, I woke up in incredible pain and my bed was just covered in blood. I was home alone, so I just called my ex to take me to the hospital and never said a word to anyone in my family. He and the girl he cheated on me with showed up, and she cleaned up the bed while he drove me to the hospital. I had already passed the fetus, she found it. It messed me up for a long time, and I tried to kill myself not long after that. My family does know about that, but they assumed it was a combination of my anxiety meds and my breakup. Those were factors, but the miscarriage was a big factor, too. ETA, thank you everyone for the kind words. This was nearly 15 years ago now, and I'd say I'm healed now. I still think about it from time to time, think about how I'd have a teenager by now, and how different my life would be. I came out as gay about 5 years later, started dating a woman and moved across the country with her, later marrying her. We have no children. I'm grateful that I could heal and see a better life for myself after that. She cleaned up the bed while he drove me to the hospital. As fucked up as the whole situation was, that's one hell of a way to show that deep down, you're a good person. I'd have had a hard time holding a grudge with either one of them after that. Seems like they kept you a secret as well. Being sexually assaulted when I was 13. It was a difficult home life, and I didn't feel like I could talk to anyone about anything. Some guy grabbed me on the way home from school, and yeah, I got home late. They didn't notice, but I didn't feel like I could say anything, especially as a young boy, because I didn't even know it was a thing that could happen to boys when I was young. We were never given those safety talks that the young girls were given. It was just so outside my experience, I guess, and the longer time went past, the less I ever felt the need to say something, because no one would believe it. Hey, when I was 5 or 4, I pooped in the dog's tray twice and it was hilarious. My folks were totally confused, wondering how our tiny Pomeranian managed to make such a big poop. Good times, good times. They knew the truth. That the reason I stress over my grades right now is so that I have good enough grades to go to an abroad university on a scholarship and live my life there. It's not because I want to make my family proud or something, no. Just want to live. My family thinks I'm still studying. I haven't told them that I've basically dropped out because of my sleep problems. Right now I do nothing but write, do comedy, paint and drink beer. They think I'm gonna have a degree in about a month and a half, so that's gonna be a fun talk. My dad's brother adopted me. They didn't know I found my biological mom. I didn't talk to her though. Self-harm. And that the only reason I didn't end myself between 11 and 17 was because I'm an only child and I was sure my mom would never survive. It's pretty damn awful to discover that you can actually not survive but just live also for yourself. And have real pleasure. That life can be enjoyable. That I have depression, or had, I handle it a lot better now, but always scary to let the guard down, and did 2 years of therapy as soon as I could afford it on my own. My mom is kind of against therapy and doesn't believe in depression too much, and I don't want to let her down. Also, I don't want them to worry about me ever. I used to live in a house where the woods was our backyard. About 15 years ago, my stepdad and I were hitting golf balls in the back with his clubs. I still had a few golf balls left and he told me to put his clubs away when I finished, and he went back inside. Well, when he was out of sight, I decided to use his $900 driver, which, at the time, was too big for me to use. I took a swing and the head of the driver immediately hit the ground and the neck snapped near the head and was hanging on by a few splinters. My heart sank and I quickly put the clubs away in the trunk of the SUV like he asked me to, and prayed that I wouldn't be murdered in my sleep. Well, a few days later my stepdad goes back to grab his golf bag. Luckily for me, the hydraulics on the back hatch of our SUV was starting to go out for a few weeks now, and it swung down and pulled a Marie Antoinette on that driver. My stepdad was pissed. I still haven't told him that I was mainly responsive for the destruction of his driver club. I was in a long-distance relationship with someone from another country for 2 years. I would travel nearly every month to visit them, or they would come to me. They had no idea when they messaged me. I was sometimes out of the country, either in their country or on a trip somewhere else. I was living a completely different life that barely anyone knew about. This is hard, but just how frustrated I am with them. They wouldn't have any clue just how angry I am at them for the things they did to me as a child, and how much I blame them for my insecurities and lack of confidence as an adult. And that we might seem okay every time I visit with them, but how I just want to yell at them and ask them why they had to be so hard on me and couldn't just accept me for what I was when I was a teenager. This may get me downvoted to oblivion, but it may not either. I was that dad for my oldest. I've tried to make it up since then, but I know that there is a lot of resentment still, but we have talked about it. A lot. I did some crappy things as a young parent, who didn't know better. I thought I was doing an okay job, but I wasn't. I tried raising her the same way that I was raised, and now, looking back, it was the worst thing I could have done. At the time, I didn't know. I ignored her when she tried to tell me, and thought that she was just being a smartass, and not wanting to listen to me. I was wrong. I have 2 more young kids now, and I'm going to do better with them. I know it doesn't make it right, how I failed with her, but I learned from my mistakes with her. On behalf of all the shitty parents out there, I'm sorry. We failed you. My family has no idea that I had an abortion when I was 23. They would never, ever forgive me. Edit. I have no guilt or regret over my decision. If forgiveness was ever needed, I gave it to myself a long time ago. However, it would not be worth the headache I would get from my deeply right-wing family if they ever found out. All they ever need to know is that my mom thought I was pregnant and it turned out I wasn't. I have a tattoo of a girl sucking 2 eggplant on my hip. Lol. My 14-year-old godson is actually my biological child. About 16 years ago, I disappeared in the middle of the night to start a new life away from my toxic family and went no contact with them for 3 years. I ended up getting pregnant from a one-night stand. I was homeless at the time, so keeping my son was not an option. My ex-best friend and her husband had been struggling to start a family of their own, so they offered to adopt my child. Plot twist. My husband and I currently have custody of my child and his 4 siblings. Their parents are in jail for domestic violence and child neglect. That is definitely a plot twist. It sounds like you've straightened your life out since you were a teenager too. Alright, so I got to admit, I swiped some cash from our safe. I feel super guilty about it, but I just can't bring myself to come clean. I have no clue how they're gonna react. I posed nude in a tasteful art project when I was 20. It was supposed to be a small private exhibition, but then it blew up, and at one point my naked image was on our major city's website to advertise a popular art festival, and a printed large version was displayed at a popular market during the festival. It was also printed in a book series. I was so worried my parents would see, but so far it's been 12 years and they still don't know. I am actually really proud of the work we did and sometimes consider showing them the book, but they may murder me. I once tried to kill a family member because they broke my Barbie doll when I was 5 and added a few sleeping pills in their tea. I was never in Japan. I needed the money for drugs and a drum set. I am sorry, Mum. I am taking this to my grave. Your loss. Japan would have been more fun. I have no idea who I am. Like physically or mentally. My family thinks I'm a strong-willed guy who loves certain things. But it isn't like that at all. I'm nothing like that, and I don't feel like I know myself who I am. It's like I'm an actor in multiple plays and have a certain different character for each individual interaction and situation. To be honest, I don't even know what my real personality is like. I once had a sex ed lesson that flipped my whole world upside down. It was a boys-only class and the male teacher was talking to us about sexual health. He explained the importance of checking for lumps as this can be a sign of cancer. I can't recall exactly what the teacher said, but I basically left that class with the view of, if you have a lump then you have cancer. You can probably guess where this is going by now. I got home and proceeded to check my balls for lumps, and sure enough I felt a hard tender mass on my left testicle. I must have been about 13 at the time and didn't know what to do. Of course, the teacher explained during the lesson that you should tell a parent or doctor if you do find anything of concern, but I felt far too embarrassed to tell anyone. I didn't feel comfortable enough to tell my mum, and my dad wasn't in the picture. So from 13 I was convinced that I only had so many years to live. I think I told myself that I would be lucky to make it to 20, not that I was equipped with any kind of knowledge about cancer at the time, other than people regularly die because of it. This belief set me on a path of self-destruction through my teenage years, which led to me breaking up with my childhood sweetheart, losing many friends and moving out of my family home at 14. Fast forward to 17 years old when I finally gained the courage to tell a doctor and have them check. Turns out the lump is just a benign cyst and will have close to zero impact on my physical health. I wish I felt like I could have been open with my mum to tell her at the time. My early life would have turned out very different if I had. I had a bilateral salpingectomy. Most of my, very Catholic, children are blessings, you should have 8. Family knows I was never into the idea of raising kids and or being pregnant, but figured I'd change my mind. I got it done very young, and they think it was something with my ovary. True, a cyst ruptured, so I electively overkilled the whole problem, not that it was a fairly elective sterilization as a result. Now I just let them think that I wasn't blessed with children, easier than the alternative. My drug addiction to opioids between my 15 and 18. I went to hospital for a chronic disease and they gave me that I fell into and could ask for medical prescription anytime, so I took these for 3 years and stopped with a big craving effect for weeks. I know that an older relative was bad touched by a community member as a child. I was the only one who knew. The relative took that to the grave. They think I'm studying right now, but here I am browsing Reddit weary. I got a girlfriend for 3 years and my family think that I'm a loser that can't have a GF. My grandfather used to force me to French kiss him when no one was in the room. When he got super old, I was tasked with watching him one night. He peed his pants and was pathetically asking me to help him. But the 8-year-old inside me just let him sit there for hours until my parents got home. Spitting on his face before they closed the casket was the best thing I've ever done for myself. See how you like my saliva all over your face, you piece of shit. That I am an atheist. If I tell them, they are gonna come with an army of priests, nuns and others treating it as a mental illness. SMH person facepalming. That I'd walk around with a 50 milliliters bottle of someone else's piss down my pants, just to pass the drug tests they'd make me do. That I don't follow the religion they brought me up to believe in. Me telling my aunt and uncle how absolutely batshit crazy my mom is. She has threatened to sue me with no basis on multiple occasions. She ended our relationship because I wouldn't remove an old post about her from Facebook. But we can't forget that she will not return my husband's guitar, which was his father's, nor the Aaron chair I bought to support my chronically hurting body while WFH. I can't have a relationship with them if they have a relationship with her. So I'm essentially an orphan. My dad and brother are dead. When I was 14, my mom confessed to me that my older sister is not my father's biological kid. She said she was in an abusive relationship with my older sister's bio dad. She finally resolved to leave him when she found out she was pregnant. She then met my dad a few months after giving birth and says that they fell in love. We used to get a lot of comments in school about us not looking alike, comments that only increased after my younger sister was born and happened to have a strong resemblance to me. My father never treated us any differently. I loved my father a little more after finding out because I never once doubted how much he loved us all equally. I do resent my mother for having told me though. I wish she wouldn't have made me a secret keeper from my entire immediate family, My dad doesn't know I know. I was 14, young and confused. Now so much time has passed that I feel like it's too late. I feel like part of me is betraying my sister for not telling her, but I also feel like it'd be a betrayal if I did. Fucked if you do, fucked if you don't. Thanks, Mom. Just how stressed out, depressed, and lonely I am. That I was addicted to fentanyl for almost a year and then beat that addiction all on my own. I just passed 1 year off of it and I haven't considered going back once. My income stream. My whole family is dirt poor. I had no one to remain that way, so I did some shady things with shady people, and 20 years later they still have no idea what I do for work. My wife's dad didn't even know my real name for the first 8 years of marriage. I have never been able to talk with anyone about my job. I get quiet and change the topic when work comes up. I was brought to a prostitute and lost my virginity to her when I was 13. My family would crumble if I so opened my mouth about the things I know. 1. I am a bi woman. I always have been. I'm married to a man. But my family doesn't know and they're very religious, so I can't tell them. Sometimes I wish I could, even though I'm married to a man. I just feel like they don't really know me. 2. I have over 20 tattoos, a full leg sleeve, and I have for over 6 years. My nonna has no clue I have even one tattoo, and I see her on a semi-regular basis. I'm scared I have so many at this point I'll give her a heart attack, lol. That I was very close to killing my biological father and would have followed through with it if a friend of mine, who is working for the police, didn't pull me over while I was on my way to murder that F-cur. So it was basically me getting pulled over. My friend walking up to my car with a shit-eating grin and, "Hello sir, do you know why I pulled you over?" Bullshit. Something he did a couple of times before already. But then him realizing that I was really not feeling well and asking what the fuck was going on. I told him, and that he's free to follow me and lock me up after I'm done. He looked back to his colleague, who was waiting in the cop car, then back to me and just said, "Drive home, go to your mother." And I did. He came over to my place later that evening, gave me a stern talking because of the situation I would have involved him in as well, simply by telling him what my plan was. We had a couple of beers and talked. I promised him to never even think about this ever again. And that is pretty much it. Looking back, I realize how much of a dick move me telling him what was going on really was. And he should have arrested me on the spot. I still don't really know why I even said anything in the first place. Maybe I wanted to be stopped. Also, considering how easy I gave up. When I was a kid, I dropped the rake while working in the yard and the handle landed in dog poop. Instead of cleaning it off, I used duct tape to seal off the poop from the outside world. It ended up being used for almost 10 years after that, and I always thought about that rake's dirty secret. The secret was poop. This was a long time ago, but I pretended to graduate from college after 4 years of my family paying for it. The last semester of my senior year, I was told that because of an incomplete requirement, my sophomore year I wouldn't be graduating. When I promised to retake that class over the summer, they allowed me to march with my classmates in a cap and gown. Instead of telling my family the truth, I just went ahead with it. The whole family came, big party, etc. Of course, I did not take the class that summer. That hung over my head for 20+ years when, after getting sober, I completed my degree by working with the college and taking a local class. I lost one of my mom's pearl earrings that she wore on her wedding day. Down the drain when I was like 8 years old. Haven't told her to this day. Pretty sure thinks she misplaced it, sad face. A secret from my grandparents, who I adored. They were actually my great aunt and uncle, having raised my mother from the age of 2. Her mother had passed away and her father was an alcoholic, who ended up enlisting and going to war during World War II. I had a habit of looking through my parents' wedding album when I was very young. I loved the dresses, etc. At the back of the book was their marriage license, and I saw when I was about 11 that my mother's last name was not the same as my grandparents' last name. I asked her and she told me they were not her biological parents. I never told them I knew because I didn't want them to feel less than my grandparents, which they absolutely were. By this time my biological grandfather had passed. They were always Nana and Grandpa to me, and they were amazing grandparents. That my mate I took to the ER with a fractured eye socket, broken jaw, shattered wrist, snapped collarbones and a dislocated shoulder, didn't drunkenly fall down 3 flights of stairs at his party. Was really a reaction to seeing him attempting to essay a chick I was close to, little sister close.